So Lily Allen surprise dropped her latest record, West End Girl, and it's a lot to unpack. Some have actually compared it to all-time records like Lemonade and Melodrama, and I think the hype is actually real. You guys know the drill. I will discuss this album so far, give some honest thoughts on the record before going track by track and giving it a score. But before we start, I want to do a quick recap on Lily Allen. Lily Allen is one of the UK's most influential pop stars in my honest opinion. Like in the recent years, starting her career at just 20, she finessed MySpace recordings into a proper pop career. Well, indie pop. Her first debut single, Smile, was a chart topper. Her debut record, All Right Still, was a critical hit and even got her a Grammy nomination. She followed that up with It's Not Me, It's You, a personal pop bible for me. It was also a smash, spawning crossover hits like The Fear and George W. Bush protest anthem, Fuck You. Allen actually received the Brit Award due to its success and was even a nominee for the Mercury Prize. With all of this momentum, it was a bit odd that Allen disappeared shortly after, choosing not to renew her record contract, instead to pursue an acting career. During this hiatus, she wrote a couple of songs for a scrap musical version of Bridget Jones' Diary, which was meant to open in 2012 with Sheridan Smith as the lead. However, it never happened, though a few demos actually leaked online. Allen actually scored her first ever top 10 US single when T-Pain chose to sample Who'd Have Known for 5 o'clock with Wiz Khalifa in 2011. In 2012, she actually reunited with Greg Kurstin, who produced much of that sophomore record, and changed her performing name to Lily Rose Cooper, appearing on Pink's True Love in 2012. She eventually changed her name back in 2013 and teased a return to music, coming back swinging in the fall of 2013 with a chart-topping charity cover of Somewhere Only We Know and Hard Out Here, the first single off Sheezus, her third studio record. Sheezus was actually a commercial success, but a critical mixed bag, with many critics noting it as a downgrade from her usually cutting work and empty grandstanding about female oppression at the time. I felt like it was a fine album for its time, but it definitely was not as good as It's Not Me, It's You. Allen herself noted that she had been going through an identity crisis at the time, unhappy with her musical output, thinking that she was being controlled by the label. Behind the scenes, her marriage was actually dissolving and she was struggling with addiction issues and cheating. All of this would come to light on No Shame, a diaristic record that marked a return to form for her and was critically praised for its honesty and dancehall reggae sound. Around this time in 2018, she would also formalize her divorce that same year and begin dating Stranger Things star David Harbour the following year, who himself is actually the subject of this latest surprise record, West End Girl. West End Girl was recorded in LA December of last year over just 16 days. It was announced with little fanfare on October 20th and dropped on the 24th to critical acclaim. Many, including myself, actually consider this to be her finest work to date, at least since her sophomore record. Some call it White Lady Lemonade or Melodrama for Women in Their 40s, which are kind of apt comparisons, but I also do think it stands apart as a powerful record. Which brings me to my general thoughts. West End Girl is a thrilling 45-minute record that puts you right in Lily Allen's shoes as she processes and comes to terms with infidelity and the end of yet another marriage. In some ways, it feels like the opposite end of No Shame, where Allen had taken the blame and bared all about her own indiscretions. But on this record, she finds herself on the other side of the equation. Allen fully commits to this concept, framing the album as an overarching narrative. The title track and opener resembles the opening moments of a musical on the West End, establishing the scene and the world that's due for a reckoning. It even ends on a very devastating FaceTime call in which her husband calls for an open arrangement. The title track also establishes the brownstone that they bought together and now are selling. It references Allen's theatrical debut in 2021 and the shift in her husband's tone and demeanor when Allen had just scored the role, no audition, and went on to be nominated for the Laurence Olivier Award. What we get right after that track is a deep recounting and unraveling of a marriage, Allen's own sense of self and worth, and later her sobriety at one point. Allen ponders who Madeline, a fictionalized version of her husband's mistress, is, and even pleads with her a la Jolene on a track. She uncovers the truth behind her husband's other apartment, a pussy palace for hookups, and she tries to keep things open, but ultimately realizes that it's just not worth it. We follow her as she navigates dating apps under pseudonyms, laments why he won't fight back for her, and even eventually concede defeat for the sake of her own children. Eventually coming to a conclusion that this relationship is over because he is stuck in a loop of hurt and that it's really not her, it's him this time. I found it to be such a concise but rich story that somehow got me to watch an Architectural Digest video just to understand things more. Alan has noted that this is a fictionalized account, but it feels very autobiographical. It's very private and very revealing. We live in an age of pop music where parasocialism more or less feels prerequisite, and this album feels smart enough to play into that and subvert it at the same time. I argue that this might be a zeitgeist record that's really of the times right now. Lyrical sharpness per Alan's legendary pen aside, I found the production on this to be very gorgeous and sweeping. Each instrumental feels very distinct, cut of the same cloth somehow. Each one is an accentuation of Alan's state of mind and emotions. Picking any two random tracks and playing them side by side, you'd actually be apt to believe that they came from different records, but the narrative behind them unifies them quite well. My personal favorites are Tennis, Pussy Palace, 4chan Stan, and Dallas Major. All of these just sound very different from one another. Tennis recalls a mix between musical theater and jazz. Pussy Palace is just a sad banger. 4chan Stan feels like a cursed Casey Musgraves deep cut, and Dallas Major is just a funky number. I found this album to be a very late contender for Album of the Year for me. I think it's beautifully rendered. It's a tragedy that really had me questioning how honest we should be with each other publicly, while also throwing ass to lyrics that should have me crying. Lily Allen, for better or for worse, is a controversial figure, but she's back, and I'd love to see her develop a proper stage show or concept now more than ever. Her and her collaborators have created a very disciplined but wild career best. Which brings me to the track by track, which is really just more or less me processing what the hell I listened to. West End Girl has this very jazzy, upbeat production that masks the stark darkness of this track and the record overall. I think she sets up this nightmare very well, poking holes into what should be a dream. She's moving into this house that she could never afford. She's got the lead in the play, but her husband doubts that she got the role and starts acting strange to her. She goes to London and, is a West End girl. Things are looking up until she gets the news that he wants to open the relationship, and you never really get to hear the other side of the conversation, but you get to hear her slowly unravel and relent to these demands, the hurt particularly towards the end. I think it's actually a very good summary for the album's overall tone. We then go to Ruminating. The opening drum sequence reminded me quite a bit of Back to the Start from her sophomore record. She goes into this fugue kind of state of mind that just really captures the mania of staying up all night. The repetition in the verses capture that feeling of dissociation that you get from not getting enough sleep. When she repeats the word mine, it almost feels like a grounding mantra that she's trying to fight to stay awake. And then we get that powerful hook, the line about her fear that, he looks into the eyes of his mistress when they kiss, that stings a lot. You really hear the pain in her voice. She just wants these assurances that she's still his number one, but this clearly isn't working. The second verse recalls him saying, "Do you want to know?" And she's just caught off guard by all of this. This track is meant to disorient us and her in a metatextual sense. Sleepwalking contrasts that previous track with the clarity and voice and production. The chorus contrasts his chattering with her just sleepwalking through this relationship. The verses point out his hypocrisy. There's no more romance in this since they've gotten married. She thought that it was just in her head, but he is actually cheating. And the bridge, I just found it so brilliant because it name drops the Madonna Whore Complex and Oliver Twist. These are references that I think only Lily could weave together with her mind of hers. And then there's this devastating realization that she could help him live out his fantasies, but he won't let her because he doesn't want her to be that fantasy girl. In fact, he doesn't really love her because he cannot leave her, presumably to preserve that clean image of his and to come out looking good. I found Tennis to be a continuation of the title track's musical storytelling, where Alan sketches together a real-life moment where her husband returns and she spots a text from his mistress. The two have actually advanced their affair past sex, which was against the rules they established. They're playing tennis now, which is a double entendre because he won't play with her, both tennis and the sex. And the little hook of "Who's Madeline" at the end, I found the sass to be irresistible. You kind of hear that energy on Not Fair, which is from her sophomore album. Highly recommend listening to that. Verse 2 has her finally confront him via email, and then she recalls Sleepwalking's lines on blame because he blames her. The outro is one of the catchiest moments where she asks, "Who's Madeline?" Each ad-lib, captures different emotions. First shock, then anger, sadness, and finally clarity. Then we get Madeline, which is a flamenco-inspired track where she just outright confronts Madeline. Verse 1 reveals that she's hesitant about even doing this, she can't trust him. Verse 2 channels this anxiety into fears of emotional cheating. The chorus establishes the rules that they set for each other. It's discreet, it's purely sexual with strangers, and Madeline's existence breaks those rules. Then we get Madeline's response with a Valley Girl accent and cognitive dissonance where she's fine with sleeping with a married man and seemingly defends him with that last line about utmost respect. A very backhanded moment. Verse 3 and 4 are more aggressive. There's a "lie to me and I'll end you" with a shot effect, then accusations that he cheated in their house. Verse 4 finally, addresses those insecurities that have been boiling up, that she fears her husband actually loves Madeline because she's new and not old, and that last line is so sympathetic that they both should not trust him. It struck me on the second chorus about the line about payment because it implies initially it had to be hookers, but it could also refer to the emotional cost of it all. The outro had me very pressed because Madeline shifts all of the blame on Lily, subconsciously and passive-aggressively saying, "Oh, he said it was fine, and I don't want you mad, so call me like whatever." And then all of that love and light nonsense. She's fake as hell. And for posterity, as to who Madeline actually was, Alan says that she is an amalgamation of people she imagined were with her husband. However, though, it was recently revealed by the Daily Mail, take it with a grain of salt, I don't trust them. They revealed that it was actually a costume designer who had met David back in 2021 for a film he did with Netflix. Allegedly, the affair continued well into the filming for Stranger Things 5, which comes out later this year. That press tour is going to be very interesting. I look forward to that press tour. I'm not sure if anyone will be allowed to ask Harbor questions about this album, but it's gonna be a mess. Relapse is a very trippy garage track that captures Alan's struggles trying to maintain sobriety during this affair. "I need a drink, I need a Valium, you pushed me this far, I need to be numb." In hindsight, she moved across the ocean, she gave up access to her family and friends for this man, but she's also aware that if she falls off the wagon again, she risks losing her daughters who have seen her at her absolute worst. Verse 2 actually directly references this struggle before the song takes a melodic turn that feels almost like a spiraling of sorts. The beat and the lyrics become this hazy malaise, like a hangover or a panic attack. Sonically, I found like it resembled a hellish version of the ending bit of Charlie XCX's Apple. Not to invoke comparisons, but this kind of felt like middle-age crisis brat in a sense. And I mean that in the best way possible. I'm sure Ellen herself was an inspiration for Charlie as she was starting out as well. Pussy Palace is my favorite as it marries the theatrical writing style with a hazy pop sheen that just, leaves you swaying and shaking your ass even though you should be crying. The intro itself sounds like the Stranger Things music. This was something my sister pointed out to me. That first verse where she goes to the apartment to drop his shit off, she's just stressed out of her mind and she comes in and she realizes, holy shit, this was his pussy palace. She had thought that it was like his dojo or his meditation space. That low blow line in the chorus is just so genius because it follows up that fighting metaphor and it's also a low blow to her ego. It's really pop writing like that I really appreciate, like lyricism where there's like an organic mix between double entendre and also just escalating the song. Verse 2 gagged me. She's like reading these letters that he wrote to the past lovers, about how they deserve better, and then she's found hair from the last hookup and a bag of sex toys, butt plugs, lube, and hundreds of condoms. We got this addictive chorus again, but now it just feels like this horrified catatonic state where she's just sat there realizing, holy shit, he's a sex addict. That sort of bluntness continues in 4chan Stan, which is another highlight to me. You'd think from the title that this would be a messy bop, but instead you get such a beautiful, wistful anthem about this digging deeper for the truth. She's found receipts for a fancy bag. She's imagining him taking this girl out to Montauk while she's stuck in London. But what she is bugging out about is this girl famous? Why is he hiding her? Are they still together? And then she comes to this conclusion comparing him to a 4chan stan, someone who's degenerate and gross and absorbed in perversion. Hence its placement after Pussy Palace. Verse 2 has her slamming him as a coward who lies to his lovers that this marriage is a sham and he isn't even that hot anyway, before she goes back to pondering, like, is this woman a peer of hers? Is that why he's hiding her? Non-Noggin Mummy. That is a tongue twister of a title. It's a dance hall collab with Specialist Moss, which shifts gears from self-loathing to trying to regain her power. Verse 1 has her recap yet again that she just wanted him so bad that she moved for this dream, and now she's just off about trying to be open because she's a people pleaser. The wordplay on the title, non-monogam mummy, is insane. It's playful, it's like an attempt to be cheeky, but there's just a sadness to it. Verse 2 has her admit that she had just bought into this dream and now she's stuck on Tinder and Hinge hoping that she won't get catfished, and then we get a guest verse from Moss where he actually tries to imagine what the other end of the story is like. But even in that verse he concedes that this man is hurting her, that her heart is being broken. Just Enough is this lush ballad where she finally comes to terms with her fears that he loves someone else. She notes that she feels so old, that she's booking a facelift. She has given him this power over her because of her appearance, which is something that she is blaming for something that isn't her fault, but is his fault. It's powerful stuff to have that level of self-awareness, and the chorus is about him stringing her along with this false hope. And then we get these stunning revelations about him wanting a vasectomy and her realizing that he may have gotten someone else pregnant. Did they go to the abortion clinic to have it taken care of, or did she actually bear a child? And you can kind of hear in her voice, she doesn't know which option is worse. Dallas Major is a detour back towards depression, wrapped in a fun little production. She recalls her time as Dallas Major, an alias that she uses on dating apps. She knows that she's got baggage, teenage children, being nearly 40, so she's no fun. I found it very honest because she hates modern dating. It's self-effacing when she says that she used to be famous and she's used to failure and she just needs the validation. I found the production towards the end at least, blossoms into this very funky, danceable moment that's really anchored and leans on this playful synth that's just irresistible. She may be miserable, but that's not going to stop her from making a hit or having a little fun. Beg For Me has this very depressive industrial sound to it. It's anchored again by a synth that follows her voice like an ominous shadow as those drums hit. It samples Lumidee's Never Leave You, which feels ironic. This track details what she actually wants in the relationship, while the chorus feels like a final plea for change, but a resigned understanding that that's not going to happen. Let You Win / Let You In, that strips back the synths for a more acoustic sound, giving it a distinctive feel. I think it represents the clarity of mind that she has now that she is just ending the marriage. She's hesitant to tell the children or ruin his reputation, but she knows that he's been getting away with it for years and all she can do is sing her truth, so why should she let him win? Verse 2 has her reclaim the only thing that she has left in the world, which is truly her dignity and also her family, and now it's his shame to live with. Then we get this beautiful closer, Fruity Loop, which is very powerful. It references It's Not Me, It's You in the chorus. I felt like the song was also reading him for filth, but also being empathetic. It notes that he has actions that he has to live with. She has tried to break his cycle. Verse 2 talks about her own issues. She's discussed about her own abandonment issues with her father and her past music and how she wished to break the cycle, but she also accepts that in this case, she's a bitch and he's a mess and it's over. We get a final chorus that feels like a stamp of admission that she did what she could, she could not fix what was broken, which was their relationship and him himself. Overall, this album was insane to get. Lily Allen has always kind of felt like an underrated but influential voice in the genre. We honestly wouldn't have the likes of like Katy Perry or Lola Young or many other artists who claim to be inspired by her without her. So seeing her get flowers through a very unfortunate record about anguish a second time feels very surreal. I do feel like this is her masterwork for certain. This joins Lemonade and 30 as some of the finest divorce records of the modern pop age. I'm happy to award this a 9.2 out of 10 and a highly recommend. And that's a wrap. Wow, that was a very long review video, but I just kind of needed to dig in. This was a very cool album to kind of just absorb. That's why I didn't post a review ASAP. I wanted to give this one some thought and really just enjoy the music. Let me know below your thoughts on this record, and also let me know if there's any other albums you want me to cover soon while I am on this kind of like weird hazy break of mine. It has been fun to take a break and just be a fan of music, attend concerts, and not feel like I need to put out content weekly. I'm still very grateful to all of you, especially my subscribers. Shout out to you guys. A big shout out to my members. Thank you so much for taking that extra step and supporting my channel. This year and its pop drought has kind of taught me quite a bit about, appreciating and loving music, being critical of it. I feel like this was a year that I personally kind of grew a lot in terms of being a reviewer for music. I can't wait to share my year ends with you guys later this year and cover any major albums. I'm thinking of covering Rosalia's new album next week. So tune in for that, and I hope to see you next video.